Should fraternities be banned? Well, Will Ferrell seems to think so. He opened up in a New York Times Q&A, a reader-sponsored Q&A, and this is what he told them in regard to fraternities. He says, quote, "The incident in Oklahoma, that is a real argument for getting rid of the system altogether, in my opinion, even having been through a fraternity. Because when you break it down, it really is about creating cliques and clubs and being exclusionary. I think it's an interesting dilemma for universities these days." And of course, he was talking about the University of Oklahoma, SAE, racist chant. That's what he was referring to. I want to talk to you guys, especially Brett. You in a fraternity? Were you in a fraternity?
I was not.
Okay,
No.
Because this has now become a hot button topic. It has, because of the fact that they are elitists in the fact that they're segregated, right?
I'll tell you what.
So does it breed, in your opinion, sexism and racism and
fraternities ruin a lot of people.
Yeah.
If anyone is, I don't know, other colleges, but like the colleges where I spent some time with some friends who were in frats at USC, where University of Southern California, where Will Ferrell went. That is the frattiest of frat town that you can get. There is around this one immaculate block is inner city like turmoil, and then there's this like these rich white kids from Orange County who just prove that this pod of white kids are better than this pod of white kids. And it's really terrible. And you'll take kids who show up their first year of college and they're impressionable and they join this group that suddenly is like, here is your whole identity and here's why you're better than the people down the street. Now, that said, like I was in a fraternity and we were all just kind of musicians who hung out. And
okay, so you had a positive experience.
Yeah. I mean, for one, I could not imagine a better figure proclaiming this, like Will Ferrell, who you see in Old School and you see in these movies, and you're like, wow, he really has an in-depth perspective on this, and I think that was awesome for that. I was not in a fraternity. I did see a lot of segregation around fraternities, and I think obviously there's a positive and negative sides, and I've spoke to a few people who are in frats, and they're like, I just joined to network. I just joined because these guys will help me get a job in the future, and that's a big part of it, because you are that brotherhood for life. But it kind of takes away the values of why people go to college and why people look to try and intermingle and be. Maybe some people like to remove what they've had talked about them before in high school when you're segregated because of, I don't know, whether you're an athlete or something else. In college, you're supposed to be able to mix everything else. But when I came here, I was a little shocked to see all these different groups splitting people up based on what they were.
That's what I saw too, because at UCLA I saw, I never joined a sorority, but I did see a lot of the girls on my dorm talking about like which sororities they wanted to join, and I learned very quickly that there was like the hot sorority, the nerdy sorority, the black fraternity, the jocks, and I was like, whoa, this really is, at UCLA, they really were, in my opinion, it seemed, and I wasn't in it, this is just coming from a bird's eye perspective, but from what I saw, it looked it looked like that it promoted that segregation. And I know they do a lot of philanthropic stuff. I know they do, and that's awesome.
The more I think about it, and I've given a lot of thought to this since the Oklahoma thing, because like whether it's racist chants or sexist chants, there's just that weird mob mentality that takes.
I'm so glad you brought up the mob mentality, because there are so many different, I was reading a bunch of different articles that cited a number of different studies that talked about the mob mentality, and you brought up the fact that when you first of all, you're impressionable going in at 17, 18 years old, 19 years old to join these fraternities and sororities. So that is already going against you. Then you're surrounded by your peers, and a mob mentality can be very dangerous. And I just want to read a couple of statistics coming from the National Institute of Justice. We talked about this statistic before. 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted while in college, and 80% of those sexual assaults are typically unreported because of the fear that they will either be victim blamed or ostracized. And then also that fraternity members are 3 times more likely to rape because of the mob mentality than other students, and because of the alcohol. And sorority members are 74% more likely to be raped by them because of their frequent interaction by fraternities.
I think that alcohol plays such a high role in fraternity life that is enough to turn a normal, like 2 people doing it into rape. Like since there is so much alcohol, odds are people are going to be drunk. You can't give consent. Like that's rape.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. But at the same time, legally, speaking.
Right.
Well,
I'm just saying,
but there's other incidents too where it's more than just the girl, her not being able to consent because she was intoxicated, but she wasn't able to consent, or the male because they were forced to have sex. I mean, Penn State had a whole Facebook account
Yeah.
of documenting all the women that would come into their house that they would strip naked because they were passed out, and they would photograph them. That alone is horrific.
But then again, like, are we going to take down the entire system?
I don't know. That's the question. Or
Because-
do you reform it?
Like, it's tough. I think that in most schools, there's like this 10-year cycle where, like, after 10 years, there will be a huge transgression, a huge problem. And the university is going to have to crack down on frats. And it will be difficult for frats to make mistakes for a long time because people will be watching them so closely. A frat loses its charter, time passes, and after 10 years, like, it's been long enough and it'll happen again.
Right.
Different schools, maybe it's a
So
different
what do you?
system.
So is it archaic and they should be done with it? This is the question that a
mean,
lot of
should
people
we get
are
rid
asking.
of every club? All
Or
the
do you
clubs
just
on
reform
campus?
it?
I think you need to reform
regulate
it.
it.
Like, since I've came to the United States, and I've never seen a country so segregated internally by skin color and class that it just does not make sense to me that when you go to a place that you're supposed to be sculpted to become a human being, you're still divided by those
Right.
classes. You're still divided by what you believe in, or divided by your skin color, which is a harsh reality that people need to face. And me coming from an outside perspective, I take this case very seriously because I love this country but when you see things going on between people arguing about the police force and everything else, and your college system still separates people and still has these instances that you've just seen.
So wait, we have more of a class thing than the UK?
Yeah,
thought it was all about,
your areas are split by class. You drive down Crenshaw Boulevard, you can see the low income areas. You cross one street and you're in Studio Town where there's money upon money. It's so clearly segregated that it's unbelievable. And me coming in with that without having the eye that's been so used to it throughout your life, it's so easy for me to see. And don't get me wrong, there's class segregation in the United Kingdom.
Yeah,
but
the monarchy.
Yeah, don't get
like the House of Lords and the
Don't get me
House
wrong,
of
yeah.
Commons.
I mean, but
Again, I haven't spent time there. I haven't
Right.
driven, I haven't had that
Right.
experience driving down
It's
the
just
street.
like if you're driving around the streets of the United Kingdom, yes, there's slums and yes, there's areas like that, but they're never so clearly pinpointed. Like,
Right.
I've never noticed such a distinction since I've came here, and it's no means is the United Kingdom perfect, but
I would just love to see, like you stated, more. I would love to have looked back at my college experience and for it to be more united.
Yeah.
Even me as a swimmer, I was segregated with the swim team. I
Yeah.
really was. The athletes were completely different. We were treated
agree.
differently.
Yeah.
And I wish that my experience was more blended, and it wasn't. And how do we improve upon that? That's the question.
It's tough because, like, when I think of the college experience,
Yeah.
I think of, getting drunk with your friends, living together. And that is a lot of that overlaps with what a fraternity is.
do you think those kids that sang that racist chant, although times have changed and things have got better, do you think they just grew up and just learned that chant? That's definitely passed on
Oh,
through
I think it was
generation.
passed on, and I
Of
think that
course,
they're
and it's-
taking the
and
brunt of it
Of
all.
course, and they're taking the brunt of it because they're this new generation that sings it, and it's in a time where it's far less acceptable. It's never acceptable, but in a time that was probably established, there was clear segregation. So this, for me, just reinstalls the
Right.
segregation.
But
It reinstates it.
I don't think that college kids, in the absence of fraternities, are going to suddenly not commit all these transgressions.
Right.
I think it's still going to be there. You're still impressionable when you're 18 years old, and you're still going to have terrible moments. I think if we make sure that fraternities are not, to the best of our ability, not going to increase the amount of these things that happen.
Yeah.
Just change the format. Change it.
Regulate,
change the,
reform.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, because it does, at this time, it seems to breed just a real segregated and elite kind of mentality, and I don't like that. But I think there's room for improvement. Please, you guys, share your thoughts, because this is a topic that I feel like a lot of people are having the conversation on. I think it's great. I think it's great that we're all having this dialogue, because I think from this dialogue, hopefully we can move forward with a solution, right? That's the idea. So please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe. We love you guys, and please continue to bear with us in this